next couple of days.
Yeah.
Maybe. Never know. Maybe. Hello, Tony. Good to see you. Good evening from the west coast of Australia. We had 30 degrees today. Mind you, it's dropping down a bit again. Next week, back to the 20s. But it was warm today. Extraordinarily warm. Sort of hits you. Did a bit of work in the morning, but then took the rest of the day off, didn't we? Tony says good idea. Tony says hello to you. Hello, Tony, my old friend. Dum, dum. It's good to see you once again. Dum, dum. 34. Yeah. Well, this time last year we had already had 4 or 5 days over 100, so it's not as hot as last year. I was out beside old shed stripping down timber windows and doors, and it was hot. So maybe not as hot this year as last year, which would be good. We'll find out shortly. Yeah, 34, that's quite even warm for you in summer. You get 36s, 37s, I imagine, but 34 now would be pretty early for you. Tonight is 25 degrees here still. A wet year, La Nina, I think they call that. We've already had more rain this year than last year by a mile, haven't we? By a country mile. Tony Abbott comes into bowl, left arm over. Oh, just outside the off stump. David Gow let it go. Good bowling, Tony. What?
Move that fence a little bit more that way. Just a little bit. Yeah,
Good? Okay, comes into bowling. Oh, he's cleaned him up. Bob Willis is out. Bowled. Tony Abbott caught Bob Hawke in the covers. Great bowling there, Tony. Why am I talking like this? Well, the cricket's starting again shortly, isn't it? Not far away. Miss our old mate, don't we? Chew for 22?
Yeah.
Of course, the other chap's gone as well. R.I.P. Tony. Not you. Tony Grick. He's gone. Even on this says he's gone. We don't see much of Big Nose anymore either. Well, Colin would have to come to Perth and play Saturday week or Sunday week.
Well, they're hoping to lose so they didn't have to.
No, they didn't want to come here, trust me.
Well, why'd they win then?
They didn't win. They lost the 8th, so it's 5th play 8. Eagles
they
5.
wanted to win so they didn't have to come.
That's right, they didn't want to come here. West Coast have been hammering them for years. Nothing better than the grand final, of course. Did a bit of research actually, and it's quite amazing. West Coast have been in since 1987 in the league, and they are by far the most successful club in that period. I didn't know that, but they are. But we'll have our come-uppance one day. We'll be going down the ladder eventually. It's how it works. You don't get to ride the crest of the wave all the time. Got a whole head of potting mixing today, and we moved all of it. Planted some more plants, some more veggies. relocated my garlic and strawberries.
You probably need to do an update for your channel on your garden.
Yeah, I could do that, I suppose. To give an idea, just in the last week we've put over 45 bags of compost in pots. That's a lot. It's probably about a tonne. And we still need more. More soil, more veggies. Best time of the year, watching the plants grow. Got flowers on some of the tomatoes already. I like to have my tomatoes staggered, so I have tomatoes virtually from beginning of October all the way through till February. Fresh off the vine. We got the retic system fixed. It was playing up a bit. It's going good now. Oh, it reminds us we'll do that tomorrow. Well, I'll clean those first, those middle 3 sprinkler heads.
Sorry?
But I've got to clean the 3 sprinkler heads. That's beautiful, aren't they? Fans going. 25 degrees. Bloody beautiful. So you worked out what those plants are at the front you got.
Yeah, got the...
I planted those beans too.
Right?
I planted those beans in the pot.
Yeah.
Hello, Carolyn. Good morning to you. Good evening from here. 25 degrees, which is about 80. Nice. And we got some bees today. You see all the bees down there?
Yeah.
It's good, but they're mainly there because that pak choi is going to seed with all the flowers. Beautiful day in North Carolina yesterday. Sounds good to me. It gets pretty cold where you are though, winter doesn't it? Had some more of my stew tonight, it was delicious. Crusty bread to go with it. Which is just about barbecue weather now, so probably not that many stews are going to be cooked for a few months. I am going to make that. I don't know if you ever made this, Carolyn. I'm going to make spaghetti bolognese, but with taco mix. So, yes, we did plan. We're in the very last stages of planning. We would be there right now, Carolyn. It's around about end of February. We said no. It wasn't looking good. So we would have been there from about now. Yeah, till Christmas, 2 or 3 months. I think that's not going to be on the cards for quite a while. I don't know if we're going to be coming. I've got to be brutally honest. There's that much problem with the virus in the US, along with, it's terrible to watch from afar all the unrest, bittering, fighting, and it's not the America I know. So I'll be honest with you, it's unlikely for the next couple of years at least. As I say, it's not as if we didn't want to go. Circumstances changed. Anyway, I was saying, making spaghetti bolognese with taco seasoning. A friend of mine did it a few years ago, and I remembered it today, thinking, yep, I'll do that. The onions, the garlic in the pan, ground beef. I've got a sauce that I'll be putting in there, along with the taco seasoning. So it'll be sort of a fairly thick but loosey type meat sauce, and then the spaghetti get put into it. So I think the kids might enjoy that. They like tacos when I make them. We predominantly eat hard shell tacos, not soft ones. Going to Myrtle Beach for 6 days, sounds cool. We'll be streaming sunrises. Yes, no, we will. That'd be cool. I'm up every day before the sun. I love that time in the morning. I really do. You can't beat it. Cup of tea, and we get some real beautiful sunrises. Crimson, reds, purples, you know what I mean. Yeah, watching the sun come up is something special. A lot of people don't get up before the sun, but I've always done it. And if you do the same, you'll know that just before the sun comes up, it just gets a little bit cooler, and then it warms up when the sun comes up. It's the inversion. It's really cool. A friend of mine is a chef. She said to make lasagna using cabbage leaves. Ooh, instead of pasta, cabbage leaves. Don't mind cabbage, but my daughter makes a eggplant lasagna, which is okay. Bit of spices and herbs in it. I don't know if it's a healthier alternative. I think as long as you have a balanced diet, like we eat tons of vegetables. We really do. I think too much of anything is not good. Yeah, so I don't know. A lot of people say, oh, you got to... Like I only have butter. We only have butter here. We don't have margarine. We have full cream milk. I don't use sugar. The wife has sugar, tiny bit in her cuppas. I don't put salt in much. I let people, unless it's a steak or something, I'll season, of course. But other than that, most people have got to add salt to their palate, whatever they like. And you do know how much salt comes in processed foods when from time to time you use a processed product and you just taste the salt. It's staggeringly high. I notice it anyway. Hello, Scarlett. But yeah, I've never been... I remember when margarine first came out, and they have all different things that says, like butter. Well, the product's not butter. It's not like butter at all. It's an imitation. Yeah, I've tried Himalayan salt. It's fine. But like I say, I put very little salt in my cooking. There's not much reason to cook with salt. To season, yes. Like if you've got something that you're dishing up for someone else, you think, oh, yep, I've got to use... I like rock salt. It's very versatile. So we must have salt. It's part of the requirement of our body. But processed foods have far too much in them. You know, when you bought something, you taste it, geez, it's salty. I tend to buy things like, you can look for them, you find them unsweetened tins of tomato. Still tomato, just not all the sugars in there, and salt. Yeah, kosher salt's fine. It's like how to make salt. I've got a video, I don't know where you'd find it on my channel, but it's such an easy process. I went down and got, I don't know, 2 gallons, 3 gallons of salt water, fresh salt water, other words, nice and clean. And I took it home and I did a video showing how you just heat it. I didn't show them the process, but when you heat salt water, you can get a lid on and a condenser, and you'll end up with semi-fresh water with the first distillation, but you end up with salt as well. You can just put it outside in the sun, but for expediency, I did it on the stove. Yeah, don't get me wrong, Karen, but pinch is fine. You know, a lot of people overseed. What you can't do is take salt out of a dish if there's too much salt in it. Everybody, I'm sure, has made that mistake in their lives. Lamb chops up, season them, both sides. That requires it for me. But most of the process in the cooking gets rid of a lot of the salt. It just gives you that crust. But yeah, there's lots of salt in cakes. I make meat pies and put no salt in them at all. Pasties. Like I say, salts, for me, you can always put a container of salt on the table. If people say, oh, I wouldn't mind a bit of salt with this, you go, there you go. So it's not a problem. Just that the dish I usually make, most of my dishes, have very little, if no salt. Yeah, no, it's a subtle thing. It's like in certain dough mixes, you put a pinch of salt for different reasons. There's lots of different doughs, but the most simplistic dough is bread and water with maybe a little tiny bit of oil. There's no salt required to do that. You make all sorts of different breads. Salt tends to, doesn't block completely, but it minimises the rise and affects the yeast sometimes. Yeah, there you go. It has its place, but if it's simply for taste, I'll let people put it on the table to use. You know, like I don't put any, the only thing I salt is water for pasta and potatoes while they're cooking. Of course, when you drain it, that's it, it's gone. It's like when you make pickles. I make my bread and butter pickles. I put a large amount of salt in my cut up cucumbers. But we all know what that does. It does the pickling, starts the pickling process, but it draws a lot of the moisture out of the cucumbers. And then I rinse them very, very thoroughly. You can still taste a tiny bit of the salt in the cut up cucumber making bread and butter pickles, but it's the process. It's like pickle onions. You can peel all your pickle onions, you get an enormous pot of water, leave it on the ground, and you can put in 2 or 3 cups of salt. That starts the pickling process. I mean, if we go back a couple of 100 years, that's all we do. We'd have a lot of salt. We'd be brining everything. The basic brine for pickles is pretty simple. It's thousands of years old. I love trivia too, all right? Who was worth their weight in salt? Ah, Scarlett. Yeah, can I just have a little bit of top, please? All right.
From what?
Just a little bit of top. Yeah, Salt's wife. Salt's wife. Salt's wife. Don't turn back, dear. She made a blue. Yes, don't look at Sodom and Gomorrah. Though it is being destroyed. And many soldiers used to get paid in salt. It was a form of payment. I wonder where the name Besotted came from. Lot's wife. There must be a reference in there somewhere to Lot's wife. Because she was besotted. It's sort of When you think about that passage in the Bible, it's sort of like saying, women, can't trust them. If you turn around, so I turned it to salt. Bit harsh. When you think about it, there's a lot of that referencing sort of thin-veiled misogyny. It's like, you know, you go on about certain characters in the Bible and like, they were allowed to have more than one wife. They lived to be 800 years old. My goodness. There's never a reference, though, in context. You know, that when you've eaten from the tree of knowledge, you know, he then punished a woman saying, you're going to have a hell of a time giving birth. But before that, there was no reference to this either. Like, was Adam and Eve going to live forever? Do you know what I mean? Sort of, there is no reference into that. The tree of knowledge made them aware, and of course the punishment was to follow, but there was no talk of never dying, like living forever. The literal sense of some of the passages in some religions certainly makes women unimportant, which is terrible. I'm sure that wasn't the process that was to be followed. But there's a lot of religions, even in religions that we would call based on Christianity, where women are, you know, below men. Adam and Eve. Yes, that sounds very particle. See what I did with that, don't I, Caroline? I think a lot of the characters are definitely true. I think sometimes, as we would suggest in modern times, how you play Chinese whispers, where the story is either changed by error or, let's be honest, changed on purpose to suit. But you don't, I mean, the Ten Commandments in their own sense is something that's not rejected by communities that don't even have religion. There are tribes around the world that have rules, and they're basically what the commandments are. So it's sort of a human, the Ten Commandments are a human guideline that some people have never heard of the Bible, and their tribes live by very similar codes. You shan't sleep with the neighbour's wife, all sorts of things. You shall not kill. So it's not as if they're not human in nature, first of all, but a lot of them have been used to punish people. You know, in the Ten Commandments, and I don't care what people's sexuality is, in the Ten Commandments, you sort of get a reference to, like, you know, don't sleep with your neighbour, particularly the big-nosed bloke. Don't do that. And there'd be no reason why they shouldn't be. And the Catholics, of course, haven't bent to that bow just yet. And I think Catholic priests being put under celibacy is a disaster, and we all know what happened. Church of England allows you to marry. Well, I think you could sort of put a tab on a lot of religions, Carolyn, because they're very sectarian and they're very much, you know, it's either my way or the highway. So you could name a dozen religions and they all have different rules. It's not normal to be, like I say, celibacy in its true form. It doesn't work. You can't say for one moment nuns in the nunnery wouldn't get desires just like priests in their palace. It's human. And like I say, the disaster of the Catholic Church in particular is that they sought other methods for their satisfaction, which is terrible. I was under the Sister of Mercy's care for 8 years. She must have been Irish. You were raised in the Catholic orphanage for 4 years. I went through hell. I have no doubt you would. They were very strict, very much punishing. I mean, I never get it. When I was a kid, we all went to Sunday school. And forever you'd hear the same words, the fear of God. It's not like it adheres you to say, well, I might keep following this stuff, but every time I do, they tell me I'm going to die, be punished, you're wicked. And then you have the complexes that a lot of people have had over the years of just even thinking about stuff is a sin. So that's pretty tough. Like I say, there's not a religion that you could say, that's not too bad. The only one that I can see that doesn't look at punishment at all is Buddhism. You punish yourself. Kitten Cat says, replace the word God and angels with aliens and it all makes so much more sense. Why do dissimilar peoples behave alike? Because of our DNA. We're all human, Kitten Cat. That's the catalyst in all of our frailty. There is no formula to be perfect or pure. None of us could achieve that or even dream of it. But aliens, I don't know. Are you wearing your tinfoil hat, Kitten Cat? Aliens, it's a concept when you think about it. If you believe in God in general, we were created, but we weren't on this planet originally. Bear with me, Kitten Cat. So we're not on this planet. Then after a number of days, we were. So we were alien to Earth from the beginning. That's if you believe in the Bible. Now, if you believe in evolution, there must be billions of planets with people like us talking on YouTube, on Venus or whatever, because it opens the scope far more wider than the belief in creation. If you believe in science, and most people do, because all of you take medication, painkillers, probably something for your foot, something for your back, you believe in science. So that's pretty categorical. We know that science has helped. Even during this horrific pandemic, a lot more of us would not be here if it wasn't for science. Spotlight shined a light on the sex abuse. It's been going on forever, Carolyn. Like I say, making someone take an oath of celibacy, and the urges don't go away. So that was always a recipe for disaster. Cat says, I think it takes... You're still talking about creation then, Kitten Cat. A different God. Maybe the chariots of the gods? Just thought I'd throw that in. Noam Chomsky is a brilliant mind. Absolutely. Noam Chomsky is a very lateral and logical thinker. He's still alive. He's getting on. And there's nothing wrong with having any type of belief. That's all good. It's yours. In your mind, you can have any belief you like, but it's not really fair to press it on to others. Kitten Cat believes in reincarnation, what it is in the next life. I've already seen it through my crystal ball. She'll land on the planet Bergatron, and there'll be 400 B-class vans. And she'll be roaming around with a shotgun. And she'll be known as the cleanser. That's your destiny, Kitten Cat. Well, we all have thought. We all have the process of our own mind. It's like a book. It has chapters in it. You don't believe in that theory, Kit and Kat, where a drop of liquid contains the complete universe. And we're all AI in training simulation. You just want to be the Terminator, Kit and Kat. I'll be back. You're terminated. We all have human instincts, fight or flight, and hate or passages in mind. Some of them are bigger and wider than others. And you don't get to learn everything. You get to learn just a bit. But in your little bit, that's the bit you can control. I mean, we've convinced ourselves through movies and books and people talking about different planets and other life. Just this week, there was a certain gas spotted through a spectrum on Venus, which basically means there could be life of some form on Venus, which is incredibly hot, by the way. It's the hottest planet in our galaxy. Oh, we do to a certain extent, Carolyn. You do it. You do it without even knowing. You'll be walking down the street, going to the shop, and then you'll see a couple of dubious characters. You just casually walk across the other side of the road to avoid them. That's your human instinct kicking in. Everyone does that. I try to avoid fighting. If I have to, I will, but I try to avoid it the best I can. But we all have those instincts. We sense. You can't even put a sense to it. We sense something's not right. You've all had that feeling. You ever sense something's bad coming or something not good? You don't know what it is. That's either anxiety over some issue or it is actually a true sense, a foreboding, if you like. Yeah, intuitive. As Mystic Angel, who's a professor of theology and creationism.
Right.
And chocolate.
Yeah.
Trouble will find us, all of us. It's a funny thing when you think about it. Most everybody on this planet just wants to live in peace. Just wants harmony, balance, children to get good education, good food, clean water. It's not. It rises its ugly head. And greed is wants more money. And unfortunately, throughout time, they've punished the vulnerable. If you look at our society during this pandemic, who suffered most? The vulnerable, the older people, the infirm, those that are not well anyway. And what do the really rich people think about all this? They don't give a damn. As was World War I reference into cannon fodder, that analogy could be used today. But as sure as eggs, because of our behaviour on this planet, there's a reckoning coming, and we're probably living through it now in different levels. Climate. I've heard that said many times, Carolyn, but I have to ask the question, who will be fighting who? It's all right being angry and upset, but if you don't have an enemy, what does a civil war look like? Well, actually, it's pretty quiet here and peaceful, and everyone's sort of getting on down here. But don't tell anyone, they'll all want to come here. See, the only civil war that I would see would be spasmodic in the US, would be racial, because it's very close to it now. There's a lot of fires being lit on racial issues, and it's both sides, not one side, but they're being lit all the same. I don't see a civil war. I don't see East versus the Rust Belt, or the West versus the Central Plains. So you don't have a political system that works in the US. There's no way our leader in our country could at any time make decisions without the parliament. It just could. He can't say, I'm going to do this. It wouldn't happen. In fact, he'd be kicked out of office. No, I don't agree with that, Scarlett. It's a real race tension. You're old enough. The 60s were just like this. Very similar. You're not going to lose your guns. No political party is saying take away your guns. There's always been gun reform in the process, of course. Like, do you really need an automatic weapon that fires 300 rounds a minute? The answer is no. Well, it's a perfect storm, Scarlett. It's not just that they're like the 60s, and they are, but people are so poor today compared to the 60s. People don't have any prospects. Suicide rates in the US are horrendous. You can Google it, I'm not going to tell you, they're just horrendous. Crime's down, but suicide is up really, really high. People are just suffering, they're confused, they're lost, they don't see a future. There'll be a day, if the trajectory of the US continues, Scarlett, there will be no welfare. The support structure for feeding the people who don't feed into the system, based on what I see in the US, will end. There'll be no SSI, SSD, no unemployment check. Plenty of countries around the world have given that away decades ago. What are the problems in your country, see? Yes, there's always problems. I mean, it's bloody hot. What else? No, I grew up with Aboriginals. There's no conflict based on white and black, other than that the blacks try to keep getting more of their land back, which I agree. There are over 800 tribes in Australia, and most of them have got land rights now. They own the property. A mining company comes on and says, we're going to dig here, and the community says, no, you're not. They can't. So they have a lot of things they didn't have 30, 40 years ago, which is great. I'm all for it. If we think about America and Australians, we're all immigrants to a country that was already owned by other people. None of us really want to talk about that, but I didn't cause it, of course, nor did you. But we're immigrants to this country that other people already owned. Australia's not perfect, don't get me wrong, Kit and Kat, but it's as damn close as you can get. Just kidding. You'll have to come down to Australia, Kit and Kat. You'll enjoy it. Blue oceans, gentle breezes, crocodiles, sharks, snakes. You can get over that. You'll work your way around them. And in Australia, if you become unemployed, you'll receive unemployment benefit for life. There is no time factor. And unemployment is, I think, about 600 a fortnight. So, Kitten Cat, you coming to Australia? You can point out all the problems for me. Yeah, but it doesn't. Scarlett, I don't. Australians don't love their leaders. It's the absolute opposite here. They're expected to do a job because we voted them in. Period. That's it. There's no admiration for them. We've got several what you call kangaroo rats. We've got one called a quokka. It's on the West Island. It's like a big rat, really. That's what it looks like. See, we don't do that here, Scarlett. I mean, it's like if we used to work when you were younger, did you love your boss? Or when you played sport, did you love your coach? Australians think totally differently. Politicians are there because we voted them in and we expect them to do the job we voted them in for. There's no love, there's no admiration, there's no pillars being built with statues of them on. There's definitely not a Mount Rushmore in Australia. So you're being facetious, Kitten Cat. I know you far too well. There's problems in every country, in every world, but ours seem to be minimal. We haven't had any virus in my state for 165 days, I think it is, and everyone's back playing sport, working. Our borders are closed, but no, we're not perfect, but it's not a bad place to live. The last thing he is a patriot. Absolutely, the last thing. Do you know what the word patriot means in its essence? He doesn't even qualify, doesn't go close. A soldier like John McCain, who suffered greatly for being caught in the Vietnam War, went through all what he went through. A lot of people don't know the story that he could have been released very early because his father, he refused. He said, if these men aren't coming with me, I'm not going anywhere. That is a patriot. But if you've got spurs in your heels, I suppose, you could have been a soldier. Possibly. No, Victoria. Melbourne's it's the capital of Victoria, Kitten Cat. They locked down about 6 weeks ago very heavily. They were having 600 and 700 cases a day. And now, 6 and 7 weeks later, because everyone's wearing mandatory mask wearing, you have to stay home unless you're working in certain areas. The figures now are like 10 a day. Scarlett, I'm not going to go down this track with you. John McCain was a good man. He probably would have made a fine president. But it's not trashed, Kitten Cat. It is disjointed this way. They open up several things this week, and by I think it's the middle of October, it'll be all open. But the reason they can do that is that they lock down very hard. No one who doesn't have to work doesn't. The government pays them $1,500 every 2 weeks, so the bills get paid and the mortgage gets paid. So lockdown works, must work. And in the rest of Australia, it's good, no problems. I've no doubt going through that trauma, Kitten Cat, he would certainly have been affected. For what he did for the rest of his life, he did pretty good. See, what worries me about Americans, and don't take this the wrong way, it's the methodology of you're either with me or against me. Of course, that was George Bush's words, but metaphorically, you're either left or you're right. You're blue or you're red. There doesn't seem to be an allowance for maybe I'll be a little bit left and a little bit right. There was a questionnaire done about 20 years ago where a room of 100 people filled it in, and then the analysis was done afterwards, and they wrote on top of the paper that they were either a Republican or a Democrat, and more than 40% of them were the absolute opposite based on the questions asked. What worries you about Aussies? Not really, I'll be honest, no. I think Australia's a bit like Canada in many ways. We're fairly easygoing. We tolerate this and that. That's right, I explained that earlier, Leroy. He could have gone well early out of there, his father being in a particular powerful position, but he chose not to. That's a patriot. You try and have a crack at me, Kitten Cat. I mean, I'm going to ask the missus, what worries you about living in Australia? There's no shortage of chocolate.
Nothing.
So say it against the Kitten Cat. What worries you about Australia?
Nothing.
Nothing. No, don't worry about the Chinese. Most of the companies that have been affected by the Chinese have told China to shove it up their ass. Literally. Lots of things. G'day, Tony. But it's like, Australians are like that. Tony's in around now. If China pisses off enough, we'll just say we're not having any of our iron ore. Deep, wool. No, you can't have it. Because we're happy to leave it in the ground or leave it in the paddock, and we'll find some new avenues for trade. It's only been the last 30 years the dependence of the Western nations on China being cheap labour to produce things. That's it. But most people are aware that maybe we should start doing a lot more manufacturing, and that's the big swing that's coming in the UK, Australia, Canada, America. You're going to do what you used to do, make stuff in your own country that people buy in your own country. I've always said, Scarlett, the main thing that I always been worried about China is Taiwan. A lot of this bravado by the Chinese Premier is simply to take back Taiwan. And I don't think they're going to do it without a big fight. Tony, what do you worry about in Australia? Kitten Cat asked me the question and I couldn't really come up with anything except it gets hot. What worries you about being an Australian in Australia, Tony? This is an interview. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tony Abbott. He's thinking. Obviously he's got enough food to eat, so food's not the issue. It is a very beautiful country, and I'm not being biased. I've been all over the world. I can tell you Australia is stunningly beautiful. When you tell people that, you know, you've been up to the snowfields skiing, they go, what? Yeah, we've got Alps in Australia. We've got deserts. I've got 7 in my state alone. Fairly tired. Or does Australia make you tired, Tony? I think Kitten Cat's trying to find out that if we are a utopia, there must be a blemish in there somewhere. I'm sure there is. But there aren't any race wars. There aren't any violent protests. Yeah, New Zealand's beautiful. It's got lots of mountains in New Zealand, Scarlett. Absolutely love the place. When you get a chance, look on YouTube for, it's not a city, but a place called Queenstown in the Southern Island. That's where all the Oh, by no means we're not perfect, but it's a pretty damn good place to live. All right, Tony, have a good one, mate. No, that's cigarette papers. Tally ho. They're funny, tally ho. They've done it ever since they did it, over 100 years. Yeah, this has got one. There we go. It's always got little sayings on it. Australia was the first country to introduce people banknotes, plastic banknotes, making their money last 4 times longer than paper notes. Yeah, cut corners. Still 25 degrees at 8 o'clock at night, which is about 80. It's nice. But Australians are definitely one thing. They are gypsies. They move around a lot. Around Australia, around the world. I don't think we've ever been in a country where we haven't met an Australian. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, cut corners if you didn't hear. Yes, they are. I think I told you the story. We're in Germany. We could hear 3 Aussies just walking in front of us. And I did a broken German thing by saying, "You like Germany? Das is good, yeah?" And they're going, "Yeah, mate, yeah, it's pretty good. Where are you from?" And I said, "Perth." I said, "You bastard." But I honestly have not been in country where there's not Australians. And statistics have been done. 10% of Australians, on average, are not in the country. Obviously, it's different now. But any given time, 10% of the population is elsewhere on the planet. So that's close to 3 million people. Oh, there's been marches for Black Lives Matters where white Australians in their thousands were marching as well. And when you come up to the mass, you should do some checking up on the reports about the mass demonstrations. They've all been arrested, put in jail, huge fines. So that's quite funny. And what do most Australians think about there? Good on it. Chuck them in jail.
We have our problems here. Australia's not perfect.
I keep telling them that.
Victoria's been bloody ridiculous. We've had our protests, but nothing like America.
No,
and the protesters have been idiots.
It was funny. There was this mass protest going to take place out of Melbourne Square, and the organisers online said there'd be 10,000 people there. Well, on the day, the organisers were arrested in their home because they didn't go, but they instigated it. They were arrested and fined about $30,000. And the 19 people that turned up were also all arrested. Oh, we have freedom of speech. I've gone up to a Prime Minister and said he's a total dickhead. And I didn't get in trouble. Also, with another Prime Minister, I sat down and had a beer. So we have freedom of speech. No problem with that at all. Protest the government? No. So you're twisting that, Kit Kat. They went against the law. The law was mandatory mask wearing and curfew during lockdown. They're laws. So it wasn't against the government. if you drive at 100 mile an hour in a 40 mile zone, you're going to get fined.
Yes, you can legally protest in
Yep.
Australia.
We have done.
You can organise protests and they can be peaceful, they can be legal. It's just when with the virus going on, they just didn't want people out in the street. And then go look up Victoria, Australia, and see what's happening over there. Losing hundreds of people for a long time every day because they wouldn't listen. So no, Australia is not perfect. Yes, Australia has idiots. Yes, Australia has protesters that get put in jail because they shouldn't have been protesting.
We've seen protests in this country that have been in their millions. Look, it's not even the issue. Black Lives Matter do matter, but protesting during a pandemic, stupid. Laws are created by Parliament. Yes, due process was taken in regards to the law introducing mandatory mask wearing, which means 2 sittings of the lower and the upper house took place, the vote was passed and came into law. That's legislative. So yeah, all done by the book. And no Australians disagree other than the 19 dickheads that didn't want to wear a mask, and they were also talking about the 5G and all sorts of stuff. What did that one lady do? She was so weird. She ended up going on a couple of television shows and they told her to piss off. Mad as a cut snake was the words used.
Oh, the one who didn't want anything closed down anywhere in the world, not just Australia.
That's right, yeah.
She didn't want anything closed down anywhere in the world. She wanted everybody to live life as they were normally living.
The virus is a hoax.
And she just wanted everybody to go out and work, go to school,
But
go
when
socialise.
when offered to go to a hospital where there was wards full of people with the virus, she declined. Yeah, it's due process. The law is in Melbourne and in Victoria, if you do not wear a mask while you're outside, you'll be arrested, you will be fined. Minimum is $1,800.
Yeah, it depends what
And that's a good
area.
thing, because if it's so high, you'll wear a mask.
It depends where you live, what area you are. We
Yeah.
do not have
No, we've never worn a mask.
to wear one because we don't have a problem in our state.
Not different laws, but when you have emergency laws enacted, like they've done in Victoria to protect people for lockdown, and they get paid, and it's mandatory mask wearing, which has reduced the numbers drastically.
Well, you
From
can-
700 cases a day now, 6 weeks later, to 12 today.
I mean, you can suppose you can, in a way, what Scarlett's saying is correct because each state, depending.
Oh, each state's independent as
Yeah,
far as its
depending
laws. For
on is what gets enforced legally through the courts.
In our state, just last week, a lady thought she was a smart ass and didn't want to wear a mask, had come back from overseas, didn't believe in the virus. She was ordered to stay in a hotel at her own expense for 2 weeks, and after 2 hours, she decided to go downtown to a pub. She goes beep, beep, beep. And what did the people of Western Australia think about that? Good. So you're not going to... All the extremely popular but with Australians, because we believe that if you err on the side of caution, you'll save lives. That's it. You'll get burnt. Yeah, buffering.
Buffering, yeah.
Oh, well, it happens, buffering. But we don't get to set laws in the US from Australia. We have our own, I suppose, moral compass, if you like, what we accept and what we don't accept. We don't believe in the death penalty. Does that make us a real liberal country? Nah, there's not many countries around the world that still have the death penalty, by the way. And in some parts of the US, in different states, there is no death penalty. It's the same here, Scarlett. There are state laws. But when it comes to unprecedented events, we're down about 7% of GDP. We're probably I'll be honest with you, Kitten, we're probably 5 years before we get any semblance of what we used to have. The government has spent enormous amounts of money.
It's making people spend money and have holidays in their own area, which, let's be honest, you live somewhere, how many people actually go within 100 kilometres, or I don't know, miles, whatever people call it, or even 50 kilometres, miles, in your area do you actually go and find some actually interesting stuff? So yeah, people are having to do that, spending the money in their own state, town, country, city, which helps a little bit in that area. We can't go travel anywhere.
Where will all
else
this money
yet.
come from to pay people not to work? Well, it's come what we call a future fund. Australian governments for many, many years, decades, have poured money into a future fund, like a day fund. Well, a lot of that money's come out and we're obviously going to be in debt. But the governments of Australia and its states and territories have all done one thing. They've treated the health issue first and then the economy.
Yeah.
And do you read the article the other day in Western Australia where we live? There's about 3 million people here. And our normal tourist operations cannot keep up because everyone in our state, instead of travelling overseas, is travelling within our state. So there are people who have lodges and hotels and motels that say to people when they phone, I'm sorry, we're full. So our internal economy is booming. Everyone's working here.
All over the world there are people with money, without money, with a little bit of money. People have learnt to spend what they have got, not what they don't have.
The real truth about what you're saying, Kit and Kat, globally, it's a nightmare, economic nightmare. But the thing that is not beautiful, but it's obvious, is that everyone's going down the gurgler at the same time. So it balances out. It just means what used to be normal is not anymore. Like I say, everyone works in my state. No one's home, no one's locked down, no one's ever worn a mask in Australia for producing money. We have all the mines here, gold, copper, nickel,
Yeah, but
iron
that's
ore.
not to say that there's still not areas or sectors or some people, or we are not suffering a little bit. We are affected with the economy. That's just
Well, we are
obvious.
because of the whole country, but
Yeah.
not our state. We're like normal. I mean, there's 30,000 people that go watch football matches.
No place on this earth is perfect. I don't care what anyone says. You
Man,
can go somewhere and you can think, oh, this is beautiful and we're great to live here, but there will still always be a problem or something you don't like or something.
Yeah,
In every place in the world.
I agree.
Nothing is perfect.
Profiting
me.
from vaccine. Well, they profit from everything else. Look at the pharmaceutical company, Scarlett. It's just staggering. Vaccine, I don't think, look, if there was 1,000 people in my room right now and they asked me, Seeds, when this vaccine first comes out, should I get in line and take it? I'd say, no way in hell. Let's wait until 400,000 other people take it and they don't drop.
Wow. Everybody's been affected.
Carolyn asked, you weren't here, but when Carolyn was in the room, she said to me, yes, I explained, we would be there now, right now.
Yep, we would be.
We would have been in the US from now till Christmas, seeing family and friends up and down America, but it's not happening. Scarlett, did Bill Gates make the polio vaccine? Yeah, I'm Kit and Kat. You'll learn, as you have learned over the years. I'm happy to agree to disagree. Doesn't mean I'm wrong and you're right, or vice versa. But what it does mean is that we have opinions. And if you can thrash them out and you don't accept them, that's fine. I don't accept some of the premises that Scarlett brings up, like I love my president. But if you asked an Australian, if you come and did a tour, Scarlett, and asked 1,000 Australians and asked the question, do you love your Prime Minister? They say, are you mad? You get all sorts of comments, trust me. No, Gates didn't develop the vaccine. He's not a doctor. Do you remember thalidomide children, Scarlet? Remember that? Not every vaccine goes well. But there's some tough times coming up. I was going to do a video, but I thought better of it because I'd be saying a lot of things that are negative, but are true. But in
There's
this,
enough negativity in the world. We don't need any more.
no, I didn't mean negative as me making it negative, just the obvious. But it's like there's 6 to 12 to 18 months of tough times coming for most people. And I'll put that in a nutshell and leave it at that, but it's not good. I'm growing an enormous veggie garden. I've got today, Scarlett, another 20 bags of compost that I put into the pots. I've got tons of veggies coming. I'll do a video in about a few weeks' time and show you what I've got up to. Well, not in Australia. We're a net exporter of 80% of our produce. We only eat 20% of it.
I mean, I'm really annoyed that we can't go to the US. I had stacks of things planned I wanted to do and go see.
Well, there's one thing that's obvious, Kit and Kat, that's happened due to circumstance. Technology, if you're into stocks, that is, boomed. Very good reason. Most people have been at home. Transport industry wouldn't invest in that at all, not for years. Let's be honest, most of the fleets of aircraft around the world are grounded. And is that going to change soon? No. The best example I give you about the failure of opening up borders too quickly, look what's happening. If you go too early, you pay a price. This will nearly cripple the UK, trust me. Along with other European countries. The opportunities are going to be localised and determined by what sort of level of infrastructure you can get your hands on, Kit and Kat. Let's say if you wanted to start at a hamburger stand, you could do it, or a hot dog stand. That's instantaneous revenue. Most people that sell hamburgers and hot dogs make about 100% profit. So if it's cost $2 to make a hot dog, they'll sell it for $4. All our kids are at school here. I'm certainly not going to, that's all I'm saying about that. At the moment. Buying and selling, Kit and Kat. Yeah, sorry about the buffering. But we are a long way away. The wind's picking up.
And just some nights it's really bad.
Yes, spinning mildly, wildly. Probably go offline in a minute.
We've probably had about 3 weeks of bad.
If you hear me, Kit and Kat, do you short trade? I think we had the wheel of death. It's continually spinning.
You'll have to type any question to us. We're still getting text.
It's buffering.
You just might have to repeat yourself sometimes.
I'll type it in. It took all.
Kit and Kat said I don't do short swing trades mostly. Low to, yeah. I would,
Do you know the biggest investment, if you can hear me, is knowledge? But it's no time to be in the stock market at the moment. Perilous would be a quotation I would give you. Can I just have someone say, yes, I can hear you, Seeds, because I really don't like typing. It's a pain in the ass. Old man, small keyboard, not good. You can hear me good. I think absolutely the opposite, Scarlett. We're on a hiding to nothing at the moment. Let me talk about logic versus reality and delusion. Not many people are involved with the stock market in general. I'm talking about the general public. Doesn't affect them other than their retirement funds with it. But the economy, we've spoke about it, Kit and Kat spoke about it earlier. RGD went down 7%, which is enormous. It's bigger than the Great Depression in Australia, the drop. It's the same in your country. What is sustaining stock prices? The answer is pretty simple. Speculation. Nothing else. A whim and a prayer. Because the returns you'll start seeing on earnings reports is coming up right now. In the fourth quarter of every year, people want to know what companies are making. Yeah, the problem with that, Kit and Kat, is like everyone fishing in the same pond. And if you don't know how to fish, you're probably going to lose your bait. Your numbers are artificially inflated, Scarlett. They're not real. You're starting to see a bit of a blimp at the moment. Well, if someone honestly asked me, I've got $10,000, what should I invest in? And I would say under the mattress at the moment. There's a lot of programs in the last 4 or 5 years, Kit and Kat, that have been out there and they're in app form or online, where you get to follow a trader. It's like shadowing, and pay a certain premium to follow a so-called good trader. But most times, it turns out disastrous. If it's too good, sounds too good, it is too good. Silver's always a better option for me than gold. It's easier to move. Gold is great, but let's be honest, when the economy sinks so far, you're not going to be able to walk into a shop with an ounce of gold and say, can I have some of those? They go, no. Yeah, silver's always been, it's like if I meet Kit and Kat in the woods and I'm thinking she's got a deer there, if I give you 6 pieces of silver, can I have half of it? And she'd probably say, make it 8 and it's a deal. If I walked in here with an ounce of gold, a deer's not worth an ounce of gold, even a tenth of an ounce of gold. So it's like, it's not tradable. In real terms is what I'm saying. As far as a sound investment for long term, yeah, gold is the answer. Not going to get an argument out of me, but it's not pliable in a society that's broken. And it's fascinating. I don't know if you can hear me. Testing 1, 2, 3. I just had to press reconnect. Hello, this is Australia calling. No, I don't think they can hear me. Time to go.
Must have been out for a while, then if it's, you're back.
I'm back. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think the gods that be are hacking our internet service. If you can hear me, thanks for coming. Had a good chat. We don't always agree, but that's okay. I'm right and you're wrong. It's not how it works. But anyway, if you can hear me, if the internet is not spinning madly, have a great day. And if you're going to bed like us, sleep well. Till next time. And there's the boss. We'll see you again. Good night.